Hey guys, Brian Schultz here with Falcon Kayak, and I just want to take a few minutes to talk about what's up with the new skin-on-frame canoe design. So I haven't been posting a lot the last few weeks because I've been spending all my time both building and filming, constructing a new set of pack canoes here because we're getting ready to start the video editing process and creating a set of plans. So hopefully sometime around the end of October, early November, I'll have a video and a set of plans available on the Cape Falcon site for people that are interested in building these canoes. So I just want to take a few minutes and talk about the differences between the canoes that I just built and the previous generations of canoes and kind of where I'm heading with the design from here. And then going to talk about kind of my next project, which is going to be really interesting to those of you who have been emailing me about whether or not this system could be applied to full-size canoes, because that is the next thing I'm going to be working on. So just in brief, the earliest versions of this that I built, I felt like didn't have enough shear and had too much rocker. The next generation that I built had too much shear and not enough rocker. And both those things were not necessarily planning errors, they were just execution errors, because one of the issues with skin on frame is that because of the flexibility of the materials and the tension of the skin, the boat you plan is not always the boat you end up with. And kind of the art of doing this is getting to know a design well enough so you can plan things out so they end up at the finished dimensions that you're looking for. So what I did in this last set of canoes here is I took the lessons from the first two set of floating prototypes and I applied them, and I'm finally getting it dialed in. And the shear that I've got now is a little bit less than the shear I had in the last canoes, a little bit more than the shear I had in the first canoes. And it seems to be about right in that balance between having a tall enough bow to get over any waves that you need to get over, but not so much shear that you're getting battered around by the wind. Now, the other thing that I changed was the rocker, and this was just not, once again, a matter of planning it. I've always known the rocker that I was looking for, but getting the rocker. And what I've got now is a canoe that if it's sitting still on flat water, I can turn it 90 degrees with a single sweep stroke. And I feel like that's a good balance between maneuverability and tracking, because once the boat gets going, it tracks nice and straight, and that's what I'm looking for. So the other thing I've been doing is just messing with the hull shaping. In the first set of boats that I built, I felt like it was a little bit too fat in the hull, and I feel like that was adding some excess drag, even above and beyond those just being a little bigger than the kayak designs that I'm used to paddling. And so I've been making the shape a little bit finer in the ends, kind of slowly working my way down there. And the changes that I've made for this set of canoes is I've clustered all the stringers together much lower on the boat to give it much more of a rounded shape with less angles being presented to the water. And I've also brought those stringers as directly in line with the flow of the water as possible. And I feel like, I can't prove this, but I feel like those two things together are allowing this boat to flow through the water a little bit cleaner. So probably going to keep that general geometry as well. Now, another thing I did in the last set of canoes that I'm going to do in all of my own personal canoes from now on is I'm making the stringers and the keel on the bottom out of a slightly stronger wood. And this has just been whatever's been sitting around. This one's yellow cedar, this one's some salvaged Douglas fir, but pine or spruce or whatever would be fine for this. So I like having those stronger framing members in the bottom, but still making everything else about of red cedar to keep the whole boat nice and light. And where we're at with the weights right now is this one that's designed for someone who's about 150 pounds is a 17-pound boat, and this one that's designed for someone who's about 180 pounds is an 18-pound boat. And I really think that that's kind of going to go up like that. So if you built one of these for a 200-pound person, it would weigh 19 pounds, 210 pounds, probably weigh 20 pounds, so on and so forth. So really good kind of weight to strength ratio there. Other thing I've been working on is just experimenting with asymmetrical hull forms in this. And this is something that I'm not sure if it's making a difference or not, and I'm going to have to be really convinced before I put that in a set of plans, because there's so many things that have to do with the construction of the boat and the nesting of the boats together that make it a lot easier if you're just doing a symmetrical canoe. And at least in a kayak, the reason that I make most of my boats Swede form is because the paddler is stuck in one position, and it kind of helps with the dynamic balance between the paddler position and the wind and various waves. But in a canoe, you can move your body forward and back, at least in these particular canoes, and that helps you to kind of balance on the fly. And so that really takes one of the main advantages of a Swede form hull out of there. So I'm going to keep experimenting with this, making canoes that are Swede form, making canoes that are symmetrical, seeing if I can discern a difference between the two. But for now, I think they're going to be symmetrical canoes in the plans. I've been working on the Catamaran system that I showed you in the last set of videos, just really minor tweaks, but things that do matter. I could talk about that for 20 minutes, so I'm not going to go into that right now. But basically, it's a set of catamaran boards that goes underneath these rescue loops here that's really quick to put on the boat or take off the boat. So you can either be paddling solo, or you can take them and put them together and paddle them side by side with a friend, which is actually a surprisingly effective way to paddle. You know, normally when we think about canoes, we think about one person in the front, one person in the back, but I'm just really enjoying experimenting with this whole side by side paradigm. And the coolest thing about the latest set of catamaran boards is that when they're not being used, they tuck perfectly out of the way as floorboards in the bottom of the boat. So the other thing I've been working on is the sail system, which is something that hasn't changed all that much in its basic function or form. I've got one right here. It's just basically a small flat cut polyester sprit sail that's between 1 square meter and 2 square meters that mounts on a mast that folds up off the bottom of the canoe. Super quick and super easy. It just takes seconds to put into place. It takes seconds to drop it back into the bottom of the boat. It doesn't require a whole bunch of fancy hardware, and you can do it on the water to switch between paddling mode and sailing mode. And that's really what I was looking for with this particular sailing design, because most of the time when we talk about canoes and sailing, you're talking about a dedicated rig where you have to set yourself up with lee boards and kind of this big oversized rig that's not super functional in a touring context. It's kind of more of a recreational thing that you'd want to be doing where somebody could easily rescue you. And that wasn't what I was looking for with these canoes. I was looking for a really simple, effective, easy to stow, easy to deploy, functional sail rig that people could just have with them all the time, that they could pop up when there's a little bit of wind and that they could take down when there's no wind. And this whole rig is, you know, I just keep messing with it, keep taking it out and playing with it. And I find it kind of addictive because it's big enough that it's going to push you along at hull speed in a reasonable amount of wind. So like, you know, 10 knots and you're going 4 miles per hour in this particular 12-foot canoe, which I think is a pretty great amount of speed considering the size of the sail and also the size of the canoe. But the cool thing about it is that it doesn't require any kind of fancy like hardware or anything like that. You just raise the sail and you can steer this thing by leaning forward with your body and leaning back with your body. And it's just kind of a zen thing to get into, just kind of learning how to play with the wind like that. So I've been pretty stoked about that and been kind of refining the design for that in general. Now, the next place that I'm going to be heading with these canoes is actually not pack canoes. I feel like I've got a pretty good sense of these boats right now. I feel like they've turned out to be what I'd originally planned for, and I feel like I know enough about the sizing now that I can suggest different sizes that are going to fit different size people. So the next horizon in what I'm doing here is going to be full-size solo canoes, because I've had a lot of people emailing me being like, can I take this system and make it a full-size canoe where I'd be sitting up a little bit higher and using a single-bladed paddle? And my answer to that is we are about to find out, because I'm going to take both these canoes, set them out back with the growing pile of pack canoes that I have back there, and I'm going to start on a new set of canoes that are 14 feet long by 30 and 32 inches wide. And probably within about 2 weeks from now, I'll have another update out where I'm going to go through those canoes and show you how I built those, and also show you some on the water footage and tell you how I like them, because I really like this construction system in general. You know, the big kind of challenge of what I've been doing here is designing a new type of skin-on-frame construction for building canoes. And I feel like the versatility of the laminated gunnels that are a little bit thicker, a little bit stronger, and serve as attachment points and mounting points, and also really effectively hold the shear in the canoe, combined with the rib bending system that I'm developing that doesn't have to use a mold, where you just use a set of measurements and proportions and you can free bend all the ribs into the canoe in literally 1 hour, comes out with a system that is so much faster and easier than any of the other ways that I've built canoes in the past. And so right now, this is taking me, if I'm not filming while I'm building, it takes me 7 days to build a set of 2 pack canoes. Now, I've been doing this for many years, so it's probably going to take you about twice that much time, but that's still 2 weeks to build 2 canoes, which is so much faster than just about any other system of any other type of boat building, or even any other way to build these things out of skin on frame. So super excited to share all that with you. Super excited to get these solo canoes done in a couple weeks and give you an update on those. I'm gonna really get my nose to the grindstone, focus on the video editing, focusing on creating a set of plants. So hopefully I'll have these released so people can start building them. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for watching. I will see you next time.